Late 1967, the Mekong Delta. You are moving with the 9th Infantry Division through rice paddies and canals where dry ground is a rumor, and your boots never fully dry. Army medical histories later recorded that, across the war, disease accounted for a large share of hospital admissions, averaging roughly 350 disease admissions per 1,000 troops per year. In this video, you're going through 3 phases of how jungle disease takes men out of the fight. First, the wet foot breakdown and gut illness, then malaria that thins units in the field, and finally the fevers that refuse quick diagnosis and start clogging the evacuation chain. The first phase is not exotic. It is constant immersion. Unit preventive medicine guidance in the Delta warned that after about 72 hours of repeated paddy exposure, foot problems could affect a significant slice of an infantry company's strength. What that meant on the ground was simple. Your feet stay soft, white, and fragile. Skin splits at the heel and between the toes. Fungus moves in, then bacteria. Small cuts become open sores. Army medical records described immersion foot, tropical ulcers, and cellulitis as common reasons men were pulled from patrol schedules, because once the skin breaks down, the only real treatment is drying, cleaning, and time. A medic later recalled that the hardest part was not the first blister. It was day 4, when the swelling set in and a man could not lace his boots without pain. You can still walk on it for a while. That is what makes it dangerous. You keep moving until the tissue is too damaged to ignore, and then you are a casualty without a bullet. At the same time, the gut starts failing. Diarrheal disease was a steady background loss in Vietnam, and it hit hardest when men were dehydrated, exhausted, and drinking from the wrong place at the wrong time. After-action notes and hospital summaries repeatedly tied spikes in diarrhea to patrol tempo, local water sources, and lapses in sanitation. A soldier can keep a rifle in his hands with a fever, but severe diarrhea takes away his water, his salts, and his judgment. A platoon can push through discomfort. It cannot push when men are too weak to eat, too weak to carry, and too embarrassed to say how bad it is until they collapse. Army medical histories noted that these ordinary illnesses mattered because they did not arrive one at a time. They stacked. Wet feet make skin break. Broken skin invites infection. Infection and diarrhea steal sleep. And by the end of a long operation, the unit is already thinner than its roster suggests. That sets the conditions for the second phase, when a single mosquito bite can do what weeks of patrol could not. As units move through higher risk areas, especially in parts of 2 Corps and I Corps, malaria became the disease that commanders feared because it removed men suddenly and kept them out for long enough to matter. Army medical histories calculated that malaria cost the force well over 200,000 man-days in 1967. That number is not abstract. It is squads that cannot be fully manned. It is a platoon sergeant doing the math on who can still pull security tonight. It is a medic watching a man go from tired to shaking chills within hours. Field reports and hospital summaries described a familiar pattern. The first days look like flu. Then the fever spikes and returns. Headache, sweats, and weakness become the whole day. In some cases, especially with falciparum malaria, men could deteriorate fast enough that evacuation was not optional. The evacuation system was built to move these cases quickly. A man with suspected malaria might go from a company aid man to a battalion aid station, then to a helicopter, then to an evacuation hospital such as the 24th Evacuation Hospital at Long Bin or the 91st Evacuation Hospital at Taihoa, depending on where the unit was operating. Hospitalization time varied, but a week or more was common, and complicated cases could take longer. Medical officers repeatedly emphasized prevention. Chemoprophylaxis, insect repellent, sleeves down at dusk, and bed nets were possible. But records and veteran recollections also show the problem in plain language. Men did not always take the pills as directed, and field conditions did not always allow perfect prevention even when they tried. A medic later recalled that the difference between a disciplined platoon and a tired one could show up in the sick call line about 2 weeks later. Malaria did more than remove bodies. It created uncertainty. Fever in the bush could be malaria, or it could be something else. And something else is the third phase, when a diagnosis is not clear, the treatment is not immediate, and the evacuation chain starts to fill with men labeled with fever, hepatitis, or unknown. By 1968 and 1969, evacuation hospital summaries in multiple regions described heavy admission loads for febrile illnesses that were not resolved at the company level. Some were mosquito-borne viral illnesses such as dengue. Some were mite-borne diseases like scrub typhus in certain areas. Some were bacterial infections tied to water exposure, including leptospirosis. And some were viral hepatitis, which was feared because it could take a man out for weeks, not days. This is where the jungle becomes truly efficient at removing manpower. The earlier phase injuries are visible. The malaria phase has a recognizable rhythm. But prolonged fever does not give a unit a clean answer. A man is febrile, weak, and no longer safe to keep on patrol. The medic has limited tools. The commander has limited patience for risk. So the man gets moved. From the line to the rear. From the rear to the hospital. From the hospital to convalescence. In hospitals such as the 95th Evacuation Hospital in Da Nang or the 8th Field Hospital in Nha Trang, clinicians sorted men by what could be confirmed and what could not. They ran labs where available. They treated dehydration, controlled fever, and watched for complications. But even with good care, hepatitis cases could mean several weeks away from duty, and prolonged fevers could keep a bed occupied while doctors ruled out the dangerous causes. Veterans often remembered this phase less as drama and more as frustration. A man would say he felt sick all over, and nobody could name it on the first day. A medic later recalled the helplessness of doing the basics, fluids, cooling, rest, while waiting for the rear medical system to make the call. Army medical histories noted that the burden of these illnesses was not simply the number of admissions, it was the disruption. A rifle company does not just lose one man. It loses his experience, his specialty, and his place in the team. Replacements arrive, but cohesion does not arrive with them. And the men who return after a long medical absence often come back lighter, weaker, and cautious about how quickly the jungle can take you down. By the end of a tour, many veterans could list combat incidents with dates. They could also list the diseases by memory, because those were the days the war stopped being an operation and became survival. The consequences were practical and lasting. Skin infections that never fully healed right. Malaria relapses in some men. Lingering fatigue after hepatitis. And for many, the lasting impression that Vietnam did not only fight with bullets. It fought with water, insects, and heat, and it did it every day. That is the part that deserves to be stated plainly. These diseases did not just make men uncomfortable. They reduced combat power, forced evacuations, and changed how units plan operations. And for the people who carried those illnesses home in their bodies and their memories, they were not side stories. They were part of the war.